Will you attend the Prime Minister's address to Congress?
I will, and I would say to my colleagues, this is about the United States and Israel, not about any individual leaders. And a key relationship, as you know, a key ally for us in the fight against terror, including Iran and other Iranian-backed proxies like Hamas or Hezbollah or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And I think hearing from a key foreign ally like Israel is critically important.
A growing number of Democratic lawmakers are announcing that they do not intend to go watch Benjamin Netanyahu speak before a joint session of Congress in late July. But that's not the case for Democratic Representative Josh Gottheimer. He's from New Jersey, and as you just heard, he does intend to attend that speech. Now, the speech is set for July 24th. He is scheduled to basically give his fourth speech before a joint session of Congress. In fact, he spoke before Congress back in 2015, 2011, and 1996. It's interesting. It seems like every time Netanyahu and Israel are involved in war or some sort of conflict, and the US constituents are kind of wondering whether he's, engaging in some nefarious activity, he likes to come and speak before Congress. In 2015, he specifically wanted to speak before Congress in order to trash the Iran nuclear deal, even though the Iran nuclear deal ensured that one of Israel's foes would not be able to develop nuclear weapons. It didn't go far enough for Netanyahu. And that's the reason why he wanted to come speak before Congress and essentially trash Obama and what he had managed to accomplish with that nuclear deal.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
Now, among the Democrats who do not plan to attend the speech are Georgia Democratic Congressman Hank Johnson. You also have Representative Stephen Lynch from Massachusetts, who told The Hill the following. He imported a little bit of controversy the last time he was here. I thought it was disrespectful to the president, so I'm inclined not to attend. And by the way, I mean, the controversy he's referring to is the 2015 speech before a joint session of Congress. Dozens of Democrats decided to boycott that speech because they wanted to show their support for Obama and the fact that they were in favor of the Iran nuclear deal. Now, Representative James Clyburn is one of the more recent Democrats who came out and said, nah, I'm not gonna go to that speech, I'm not interested. And his reason for why is actually really fascinating. I mean, look, time to time, I like to hold on to a grudge, not always. In fact, most of the time I don't, but Clyburn seems to be the kind of guy who loves to hold on to a grudge. So here it goes. When it comes to that joint session, I do not plan to attend it because I'm going to treat him the same way he treated Barack Obama. But I'm going to participate with a group of others in an alternative session to his joint session to see what now we can get some attention to what makes sense. So he's essentially saying, I'd rather do pretty much anything else, including some other alternative session where we're gonna pretend like we're gonna talk about policies that are gonna be more beneficial to the American people. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I don't know if there's gonna be some sort of press conference to take attention away from Netanyahu's speech, but I do think it's fascinating that Clyburn is still incredibly salty over Netanyahu's treatment of Barack Obama. And look, if you go back and you see what that relationship was like during the Obama administration, it started off with Obama kind of speaking out against illegal settlements, and Netanyahu lost his mind about that. That was all it took. Simply having a United States president say something accurate about illegal settlements that are being built in the West Bank. Now, Obama's also the individual who provided the Iron Dome that is saving Israeli civilians on a daily basis right now, right? I mean, it intercepts missiles, it keeps the public safe, but it wasn't good enough for Benjamin Netanyahu. So, look, the one thing that it's very clear is the far right government of Israel would certainly prefer someone like Trump. They see conservative politicians as more loyal to Israel, whereas Democrats might tweak them here and there, mostly rhetorically. But there you have it. You have Clyburn saying, nope, I'm not gonna attend because he treated Obama poorly and I'm gonna treat Netanyahu the way he treated Obama. Now, another congressman who doesn't plan on attending is Greg Caesar from Texas. He says, I'm not planning on attending or I'll be participating in whatever events there are to express that we want this war to end. And we want both him and Hamas to agree to a ceasefire. And then you have Representative Jen Schakowsky, who is a Jewish Democrat. And I have no doubt she's probably gotten so much pushback for this. So I give her a lot of credit for announcing that she will also skip the speech. She says, quote, the role that the prime minister is playing is very negative, and I don't want to be there. And she's right about that. The role that he is playing within the Israeli government has been negative, not just for the Palestinians who continue to be starved to death and slaughtered in Gaza, but also in regard to Israeli civilians who are now part of a country that is viewed as a pariah state by the international community, with the exception of the United States. Netanyahu is far less concerned about the people of Israel, about the hostages that remain in Gaza, and far more concerned with his own political career. And I think Schakowsky is absolutely right about that. So Deputy Whip for the Congressional Progressive Caucus agrees with Schakowsky, saying that he needs, meaning Netanyahu, to be staying in Israel and working for the peace that he has been unwilling to support in the past. Despite the Hamas atrocities and all the wrong that exists there, the indiscriminate bombing that he has encouraged has led to loss of lives that should never have happened. He has not prioritized the hostages. He ought to be doing that instead of coming here. And that's so true. That's so true. What are you doing? You're gonna come here for your little propaganda speech while your country is engaged in this brutal war? I mean, it's just as he's being protested by Israelis. You know, we keep hearing about thousands, tens of thousands of Israelis, members of the hostage families coming out and protesting the current Israeli government and their inability to do the right thing to get those hostages freed. You know, obviously the best way to free those hostages is through diplomacy. And the highest number of hostages that were released were during the 1 week pause, but Netanyahu is unwilling to even engage in that. And the violence continues in Gaza as a result. Now let's pivot to some of the more pathetic Democrats. Like we heard from Gottheimer, but there are others like Representative Juan Vargas of California. He says that Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East. He's obviously the leader that they've chosen, and I respect the country very much, and I will be there. You also have Representative Steve Cohen, a Jewish Democrat who skipped the 2015 speech, to his credit. However, he is not planning on doing that this time around. He said, quote, it was more controversial then because Obama wasn't included. It was kind of a breach in protocol, but I think I'll go because, you know, it's a war. It's a different situation. Breach of protocol is an interesting way of putting it. Is it a breach of protocol to engage in war crimes? You're gonna have a war criminal who is being, you know, questioned by the international courts for a possible genocide. You're gonna have that guy come and speak before a joint session of Congress. Okay, put the international community aside for a second. Why is this a priority right now? Listening to a leader of a foreign government come and speak to a joint session of Congress. I just feel like it signals all the wrong messages to the American people and the international community. On one hand, you have lawmakers, especially on the Democratic side, whining and crying endlessly about, you know, human rights abuses in countries that we consider our adversaries, whether it be China or Russia. And to be sure, there are human rights abuses. I'm not minimizing that, but I'm pretty consistent. I don't get to pick and choose which human rights abuses matter most. Human rights abuses are human rights abuses, whether our allies do it or whether our adversaries do it. In this case, you have Israel engaging in international, war crimes, and we're just going to pretend like that's not happening because why? Because of the lobby? Is that why? And look, Thomas Massie, during his interview with Tucker Carlson, really laid all the cards out on the table and made it abundantly clear that every Republican lawmaker, with the exception of Massie, has an AIPAC lobbyist babysitting them. That's how powerful that lobby is. So if you're wondering why is it a priority to hear Netanyahu address a joint session of Congress, it's because they're literally bribed to. legally bribed, of course. We've got a great political system where bribery is baked into our system. But that's really the reason why. Money talks, or as my dad would say, the cash is talking.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us. Become a young Turk.